What's up, everybody? It's Herschel Froon, and this is the Top 200 podcast. And this is going to be the first one of the year. I'm going to try and bring one out every week. And, welcome back to everybody that follows my website and also the Facebook page and whatever. And those that just love First 15 Rugby like myself. I'm going to try and do these podcasts once a week, and I'm going to try and aim to do it around Wednesday so that I can give my predictions, or maybe Wednesday or Thursday. So I can give my predictions, see who's injured, things like that, and then you guys can all comment and criticize and congratulate or whatever you guys do with the information that I give. But this is just to put it out there. This is just to get people talking about First 15 Rugby and the rugby that we have in New Zealand. And that's kind of what this is all about as well. Like, if some of yous haven't jumped on here before, and some of you guys are new to it because your kids are going to be making First 15, and you heard about your kid being written about last year's under 15 players as year 10s. This is really a platform so that kids can get talked about, so that kids can get exposed to the world of rugby, and their name can get out there. No matter where you're from, I'm going to try and find out where you are, and I'm going to try and put you on blast so that you guys can have a presence out there and you can be noticed, and that so that people can come and see you. There's been a lot of players that have now been discovered and that now have gotten contracts and that now have been moved to bigger regions after they've finished schools because of me writing about them or me seeing them and me being able to put them out there so that people can go and see them and watch them and then also get their own their own scouting report on what I have written. Like, my thing is just, this is all just my opinion. This is all just what I say, what I see, and then I put it down and try and explain it to people on how good I think players are, or how effective they are, and how valuable they can be to your team, or how valuable they can be after they leave. And the whole ranking system is to give you guys context on what you're actually watching, or context on what New Zealand First 15 is about. Those that are around the same age as myself, or even those that sort of are before high school top 200, no one really kind of knew who all the best players in the country were. You kind of just found out that there was a New Zealand secondary school team, or there was an under 18 Chiefs team, or an under 18 Highlanders team, and then you just took it for granted. You just took it and said that's what it is, just because it was done on a report and on a paper, and you just kind of trust that they knew who they were talking about. And for me, even when I was at school, like, I used to, I think Rugby News used to do it sometimes, and they used to just post the team and they go, "This is your New Zealand secondary school team. These are all the names." Not that you knew who anybody was, and not that you knew who, if you had played against one of them, or you knew which one that guy was, because they wouldn't even put positions there. So, they would just put names down there, and you didn't even know if they were back or forward or what position they played. You just took it, and you just like, hey, that's just what it is. They must be the best. So things like that kind of annoyed me, because I love watching players come through more than watching the players that have already made it. Like, it's great seeing all these guys make it through to the All Blacks and to Super Rugby, but I kind of like watching them in high school. I like watching them come up. I like watching them develop. That's why I watch them from year 11s, for like those that are just new to this, and you heard about your son being written about as a year 10, is because I like watching them coming through and building them, watching them build as a player from year 11 to year 13. And so, like, I even watched Rivers Rehan. I even watched Quinn Tupaia. I watched Etienne Enanai. I watched all these guys as year 10s. Even Caleb Clark I saw as a year 10. I saw Rico Ioane as a year 11. I saw the Umaga Jensen twins as year 11s. there's just a whole bunch of these guys that I saw as year 11s before I started doing that age group, and I just kind of thought, well, if we're going to follow them through, at least I can talk about them for 3 years, so that agents can have agents, scouts, and club people can see these guys as young kids and go, okay, Herschel's mentioned these guys coming through. We'll just keep an eye on them and then see what they're like, and then hopefully that they get invited to the under 17 camps, which the Blues, Hurricanes, and Chiefs do really well. They do these under 17 camps, and a lot of the guys that I have watched in the under 15s have been chosen for those camps, which is great. Like I like seeing stuff like that. But also all these young guys that come through, and all these guys that are developing in all these smaller schools. I want to try and collect as much information, and then hopefully see them, and hopefully see some footage of them, so that I can also talk about them, so that people can go and see them at these schools as well. And so that's kind of what this is for. And this is sort of an introduction of kind of how this works, right? Again, it's all opinion based. It's all what I see. It's all what I do my homework on. It's what I get reports from coaches and scouts and players. I like to talk to players a lot, like kids at school, because to me, the kids at school are the ones that know who all these players are. And they don't know them just from word of mouth, is because they've grown up with these kids. Like, they will tell me if there's a kid who's actually better than another one, but he just hasn't been put in the lineup for whatever reason. There's kids that have told me that there's guys that are in the teams that may not be good tacklers because they're just scared, and they know that they're scared because they've played with them since they were 10. Things like that, and information like that, to me, is really important. And then a lot of kids can open my eyes to seeing something different, and that's where I think a lot of older guys and coaches, and they just don't take information well when it comes from a young kid. It's automatic that they think, this kid doesn't know what he's talking about, what experience does he have, blah blah blah, whatever. To me, that's kind of rubbish. I would rather listen to these kids than listen to coaches, in all honesty. They're the ones that know each other. They know each other because I've grown up with each other, hang out. They have, sleep over each other's houses, go out to parties, whatever. So that's kind of how I do it. So I listen, I take everybody's words into account, and then I do my own homework and do my own background checks on what people are saying, and then I make my opinion on where someone should be ranked. And I do the ranking not based on your position or anything like that. I base it on the value that you bring to a team. So just because you're athletic, it doesn't mean that you're going to make it. And it doesn't mean just because you're the best tackler in the team, you may do nothing on offense, or, things like that. So I take all of that kind of stuff into account. And I basically do it by how, if you were to pick a team and I was to pick a team, I would take the best player in that lot, who I think the best player is. And I kind of do it like that. I would pick this guy first, this guy second, this guy third, this guy fourth. And that's how I get my rankings, and how I do it in terms of who I think the best player is, and that adds value to your team. Or the most value to your team. Everyone adds value, but the most value. All right. So that's how those rankings sort of go. And that's more important for the top 200 players. Now, for the year 12 top 100 players and the year 11 top 60 players, those are real different in terms of how a kid comes back to school, how a kid it develops over the summer, how he transitions from under 15s with all these year 11s that actually starting for the first 15, and things like that. Like, it's great that year 11s jump into that situation, but sometimes it doesn't pay off. Sometimes they make it as a year 11 and they don't actually get a lot better. Now, whether and no, I don't want to name any players that have done that, but when you do that and when you see that, it's attractive to see. Like, when for someone like myself, when I go, oh shoot, a year 11 made it, that's real cool, because he's a 15-year-old playing with 18-year-olds and he's doing really good. But if he's stagnant and he stays at that as a year 12 and then stays at that as a year 13, that to me is a development problem. And then that's when you kind of have to start asking questions. Is it about that kid, or is it about the coaching? Because those two things have to work together for a kid to be to grow and develop as a player. And so that's kind of the stuff that I will go over, and I try and find out as much as I can. And this is all done by myself, and so like information is really hard to come by, and coaches have a thing about like, oh, I don't really want to talk about my players, where from my point of view I'm saying, well, why not? Why don't you want to talk about your players? Why don't you want me to talk about your players? uh, what are you doing by not sharing the information? You're not doing anything good for that player, because he wants to be seen. Like if you ask a kid, do you want to make rep teams, of course the kid's going to say yeah. If you want him to say, do you want to get signed or get looked at to be signed or have even the opportunity to be signed or to get a scholarship or contract, of course the kid's going to say yes. So why wouldn't you help me so I can help you guys? There's like a funny thing about that. I'm not too sure why, because if it came down to coaching and your coaching was on the line, so I could say, well, let me talk about you as a coach, you'll go, oh yeah, sure. Oh, this is my records. This is how, this is how long I've been coaching for. This is what I did to become a coach. This is why, you'll give me a whole bunch of things when it's you on the line. So why wouldn't you help it when there's a kid? Because the kid and his parents are probably going to be the same way. Be like, yeah, can you write about me so people can come and watch me? Yeah, of course. That's what I want to do. So that people can make up their own minds of how it is, and then you can prove yourself in that way. Most kids just want an opportunity. If they're given the opportunity, they don't make it, they're fine with that. If that's the case, because they know that they've had the opportunity and that they didn't do it. But when you just cut it all off, like some coaches have, and I'm not saying all coaches, because there's some really good coaches out there that will talk to me a lot, and then they'll inform me on, even when I get stuff wrong, they'll inform me. They go, oh no, Hirsch, you got this wrong. It's like this. I'll be, oh sweet, I'll just change that information and then correct it later, correct it on my next post, things like that. And so that's really good when coaches really cooperate and even get in on this, where they start helping, because I want kids to be seen. I want kids to be noticed and to have that opportunity as well. And in all honesty, NRL scouts and coaches have really been the better ones in terms of really wanting to help out, because they're more open to it, I guess, because they want more players. First 15 players going over to NRL, it just works better, to be honest. They just seem to do a lot more and just, I guess, a lot more prepared. But yeah, if coaches if coaches helped out more, then I'd be able to help out more kids as well, and getting their names out there, not just to your own province, or to your own region, but to the other ones, because that's kind of how it works. Like, gone are the old days where you just stay in Waikato just because you're from Waikato. It's like, no, because Southland might want you, and Highlanders might want you, and then a Christchurch club might want you, and you might find it better down there. It's all those kind of things. It's professional, and we just kind of have to move on from that. That's just how it's going to be. And so that's how I prepare all these my write-ups and stuff that I do about kids and their rankings, is by doing my own homework as well, and getting the help from other people that are around me. The other question I got asked was about how that I get asked a lot is how do I rank schools, and a lot of it has to do with kind of two things. Your win-loss record is always going to be a big one, but also the competition that you play in is also going to be a big one as well. So if you can win most of your games, and in a good competition, win most of your games, but even lose by little margins, it does have a bit more bite in it that you are a better team. So, for example, if you can win all your games in the Super 8 or in the 1A, which is kind of impossible sometimes, like there's just all those teams are so close together, it really looks better for you on the ranking side of it, because every team that you pretty much play is hard. In the 1A, maybe the bottom three teams may be easier teams, but not that easy where you can fully just not train hard, because there's a lot of upsets in those kind of games. And so the 1A is another one where it's pretty hard as well to take a week off. In the Super 8, you can't take a week off. Um, and so like your schedules are going to be pretty hard, and that's a lot harder than other schedules in other competitions. The CNI is another competition that's getting a lot better. They're like maybe six teams strong, 7 teams sometimes in the CNI competition, which is the Central North Island one. And that's another school that I look at, players that want to leave their schools to go to a good competition. That's the place I'd probably start sending people, is to the CNI competition. The North Harbour one is a tricky one as well, because the North Harbour one, now that Manurewa has gone there, Manurewa High School, it's gotten a lot better. And it's changed the dynamic of how they have to play now. Um, I would hope that another better team, or one from like the 1B, or from Auckland, if they joined it, someone like Botany Downs, or One Tree Hill College, someone like that, or Tamaki College, like even Otahu. If those 4 teams went into the harbour competition, mixed with Whangarei boys and Manurewa, I think that competition will get a whole lot better, and a whole lot. It would lift that level of that competition, because sometimes there's too many rests. You have too many weeks off in a competition like that. It's the same with the Wellington competition. Wellington competition, you pretty much only have 4 teams, maybe 5, and then there's always that one team that comes up. Like this year, I really like. I really like last year, Kapiti College was the one that I thought was kind of unlucky. Tawa was good for a little bit. Purirua College was good for a little bit as well. And they just have too many breaks in those kind of teams. Hibs comes and goes sometimes. Um, Wainui is another one. Wainui is another one. Um, and those kind of teams come and go sometimes. There's not too much consistency in the teams that they have. But like those wins are not as quite convincing in a ranking system than it will be against the Auckland teams, or against the Super 8 teams, or anything like that. Even the UC Cup, a UC Championship, have a problem that as well, because they have weak teams at the bottom of their lists, who are too weak to compete. Like I think even some seconds and third 15s would be beating some of those bottom teams of that UC Championship. And then it kind of dilutes the talent overall talent level of that competition. And then when it comes to ranking, if you're going to look at that, like for example, Stack was one last year that they had a really good win right on their first game against Nelson College, and then they sort of ran the table, but they ran the table through teams that weren't the best. And then at the end of it, they had the last 6 games that were the hardest ones. But then if you looked at their record, it would have like 6-0, 7-0. But at the same time, if you looked at the teams, it's like, well, yeah, you should win all of those. Most of the time, it's like you beat the teams that you should, and then you try and beat the teams that you are on par with, or they're a little bit better than. And then it just makes it a lot more convincing when it comes to rankings. That's why Otago competition has a hard time sometimes, because Otago is the same, where King's High School to me is the team to beat down there in the deep south, and then it would probably be Otago, and then Southland, then John McGlashan, and then maybe. See, this is where I kind of think I kind of wish that Gore High School was in that Otago competition as well, because I don't think Gore High School will lose a game all year, but they're going to be in a competition where it's going to be too easy for them. But yeah, in the ranking terms, even if they run the table and go perfect all year, it will be hard for me to justify why they should be even a top 25 team or a top 30 team, because you got all these other teams playing just so much harder competition. Or the other thing that I really look at as well is traveling. Like the UC Championship, which is the Christchurch one, and then the Super 8 one, which is the Mid North Island teams, boys' schools. They have to travel the furthest and the longest, and they travel every week. And that is a massive deal when you're traveling, 3-4 hours every week. Sometimes if you're doing it back-to-back weeks, like if you have to go to Gisborne, then the next week you have to go to Palmy, and then you have your home game. So that travel time for some of these boys is, or for any team, is going to be really hard. That's kind of why the 1A, to me, sometimes they get a break, because at the same time, when you're saying, oh, we got a away game, it's like, well, not really. Because if you're St. Peter's playing Auckland Grammar, you are down the road. It's like walking to the dairy. It's like, well, that's not really an away game, right? Because everyone's going to pretty much show up at that game. On the other side of it, you have somewhere where Palmerston has to travel to, New Plymouth, or they have to travel to Tauranga, and you don't see anyone on your sideline. That is a bit different too, because that's an away game when you don't have anyone there, or hardly anyone from your school is representing you. And so those kind of things weigh up in it as well. If you can win away from home, it's a big deal when it comes from the Super 8 or the UC Championship, especially if you're having to travel from Christchurch to Waimea, or or from Timaru all the way up to Marlborough. It's going to be, you're going to have no support at all. And so those away wins are really big when it comes to ranking and all that, those kind of things. There was a few other things I kind of really wanted to talk about a little bit, and then hopefully I have enough time, but because I don't want to make this too long. With the World Schools in South Africa, teams not traveling there anymore, and I was told the Pacific Barbarian team is not going anymore. And with this coronavirus, I understand. I don't know if Kings is going still, but I know that the Pacific Barbarian team that is here, they've decided not to go, which I feel like is a good thing, because if the reports about it are so unclear with this coronavirus and how it is, and it was my son, I would not want them to go. The other thing is that when you get there and get back in quarantine, like let's say King's College, if they come back, you're going to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. And then you have to get back and play games. Well, you're not actually playing. And then even after that, like the mindset of stuff is that as a parent, you'll be like, well, my kid's going to be all right playing those kids that just came back, and we don't know if they got coronavirus, all that kind of stuff that we're just uneducated about. That would be a worry. And so with the Pacific Barbarians making that call that they're not going to be going to South Africa, I kind of support that. It sucks that the boys can't travel and they can't go there. And I know some of the boys that were going on this trip really excited, and it's a great opportunity. But I think the safety of it, from a parent's point of view, the safety of it is to me, is probably the bigger thing that you'd want to concentrate on. And I know that South Africa teams love it when New Zealand teams go over there. And every time they play, they have a point to prove that South Africa is better than New Zealand at rugby, and they will do it from this. So next year, I hope some of you teams are looking at going to the South Africa World Schools next year, because it's going to be a massive one. And then even with the Pacific Barbarians as well, it's going to be a good opportunity for hopefully players to get picked again to go over and represent the Pacific Barbarians. The other thing that I wanted, like, there's this new app called Usshh that's out, and I posted up about it before. Everyone's got to jump on this and then have a look at it, because this is for you to be pretty much your own agent. It lets you set up your own profile. It lets you choose the sport you want to play, put in positions, all that kind of stuff, and then it will link you up, and then you start looking for your own clubs and being able to get in contact with people that you want to get in contact with, and then you get to control how you want this done and where you want to go, and then you don't have to ask a middleman of where it is. So a lot of you, and it's for students, club players, pro players as well. I have a feeling that this thing is going to be big, and when pro players start jumping on this, because pro players are getting younger and younger, and then with all and they're using an app is what they're used to. Now, if you can get an app to sort of direct your own career, and then you could just pay a lawyer to read it, and then that's it, and you don't have to keep them on retainer. They don't take 6-10% or whatever they want to take. I think a lot of professional players are going to jump on this themselves and then be able to do their own contracts, do their own looking, do their own, contacting, and then their own negotiation as well. That'll be like another big one, and I feel like Usshh is going to be one of those sports um, recruiting apps that just lets you do it the way that you want to do it, and then there's nothing hidden. There's no negotiations that you're not a part of. There's no information that you're going to miss out of because you're just doing it yourself. You'll be able to get contact yourself and all that kind of stuff too. So like everybody jump on it. Just have a look, and it's not just New Zealand too, because I think you can do it from all around the world as well, because it's a worldwide one. But some New Zealand fellas are the ones that created it, and I was just having a look through it before, and it's also a way that teams can get sponsorships as well, which is like a big thing as well. It's finding sponsorship money, so they find companies that have funding there for you, so that you can apply for it. So you don't really have to ask people that are not really in it. You can go to the app, and then the app will tell you all the businesses in your area that are saying, yes, we have this much fund money, that grant money or whatever you want, and you can just apply for it, and then they'll come around, and then negotiate with you with things like that. So that's like another big thing that I really liked about this as well. So everyone just go have a look at it. I think it's a really good thing. I think it's just a way of being able to control it yourself. Even for parents that are a bit skeptical about how the whole sports and agents game thing works. If you can control it yourself and be able to guide it and do it the way that you want to do it, and so that you're not left out on any kind of information, then I think this is like a great thing for you guys to jump on. One more thing I want us to talk about. Oh, it is New Zealand Rugby's birthday today, this year, and it's the 150th year of rugby in New Zealand. And because rugby started in Nelson, that's the place that I really want to be for the quad this year. It's going to be interesting. I hope New Zealand celebrates it in some way. I haven't really seen anything on it so far. I would have thought there would be a lot of like 30 for 30 kind of documentary things on the birth of rugby in New Zealand, how it got here, all the guys that are involved, all that kind of stuff. Pretty much Americanize it, because that's what America's good at doing. They're just good at dramatizing everything. But at the same time, they are stories that like you do want to hear. Like I want to hear about the first game. I want to hear about who brought it here and all that kind of stuff, and how it's grown over the years. I mean, I think we're at a stage right now where the game is at a point where it's changing again. And the last time that happened was when it became professional. And I think right now is going to be an era of the game changing again, because I think that we haven't done the professional game as good as we could have as in New Zealand itself. And now that money's calling, I actually understand and agree with 100% all these guys that are leaving. This is going to be one of those eras in New Zealand rugby eras and eras in New Zealand rugby that we're going to look back on and sort of see as one of those staple remembered pinpoints of how New Zealand was as a rugby country and how rugby grew. But I'm ready to celebrate with everybody else that loves rugby and that watches it every week and studies it and just enjoys everything about it. And the next podcast will be out next week. There'll still be some more future focus teams coming up. I'll do some more write-ups on players. All the schedules are starting to come in. Thank you for everyone that's been sending in these schedules, because now I'll be able to plan out how I'll be able to travel and what games I can get to. Thanks a lot for listening. Social and Furl, man. Peace.